Hi, it's Luke from Out of Darts. Today I wanted to tell you about a really great trip I just took. I have been missing Nerf games like crazy. It has been a really downer to not be able to play as much these past couple years. I finally got up the courage to take my first flight and travel for a game, and I made it all the way out to Atlanta, Georgia to play with the well-known Nerf YouTuber Drac. Drac is very much a part of my origin story when it comes to this hobby. I would not be doing this without him, no matter how you hack it. He did the video on my original Hurricane prototype, and that got a couple million views. I think it's probably 3-4 million views now, and that really spiraled me into this Nerf hobby ultimately full time. So when I finally got the chance to go out and visit and see how a different coast plays, I had an absolute blast. I got to hang out with Drac and some of his amazing employees. He's got a really good team there over at Foam Pro Shop. And it was really fun to kind of compare and contrast the differences between my shop and theirs. Because while we do similar things, we're also doing a lot of different things. Drac does a lot of arcane builds, which are his sort of top tier, really high quality, beautifully, thoughtfully put together blasters. A good example is he sells a Lynx that's got anodized bars, and it's got a custom catch that they've printed on SLS as well. So pretty neat stuff. It was really fun getting to see how somebody else organizes their shop, their workshop, their studio, and I even got to jump on a live stream with Drac. This hobby, as much as it is growing, is still really small, so it's nice to see and meet with and collaborate with other YouTubers, and Drac is definitely an old school nerfer. I mean, when I joined this hobby, the Strife had just come out and things were already starting to ramp up. It was a time period where you really couldn't get motors very consistently. I remember the Shark 130s went up and just like a day later they were totally unavailable, and so it was kind of this like, chase things down a rabbit hole and have a really difficult time trying to actually find the parts you need. Fast forward to today, we've got 3D printing has taken over everything. So Drac's shop, just like my own, involves a lot of 3D printed designs. We even sell some very, very similar designs, and that's okay with me because ultimately, I think the more of us that are doing this, the bigger the hobby grows, and as Drac always likes to say, rising tide floats all boats. One of the coolest parts about this trip was the actual game day. I got to play at a game called COSTCOH with an H. If I ever figure out what the acronym means, I'll put it down here. I probably should have asked that weekend, but it was kind of a whirlwind, so I didn't get to it. This was an old school NIC war, and NIC, for those who aren't familiar, is Nerf Internet Community, and really just a terrible name for the hobby in general, but 15 years ago, that was the best that was used, and it was really a really common name for that part of the hobby. So the game we played, you couldn't have magazines, and you couldn't have hoppers, at least not hoppers in the rival sense. So all the blasters were pretty much traditional PVC hardware store blasters. Now I was a little skeptical getting to go out and play this because it's so different from my play style, and the rate of fire being so much lower and the FPS being higher is different than my normal skill set. This game was hosted by none other than Chicken, who has been in the hobby at least as long as Drac, or if I'm not mistaken, longer. Someone's gonna have to correct me in the comments because I met a lot of old school nerfers this weekend, and it was really humbling because some of these people have been doing this twice as long as I have, if you can imagine that. It was pretty awesome. Chicken was kind enough to also supply a few blasters for me to play with. I got to play with a rainbow pump, a rainbow pistol, and I think a snap or a pump snap. At the games, there were also PVC bows and a variety of other blowguns and other homemades as well. Additionally, some people played with blasters that were pretty much current blasters but modified to suit the game type. This included one of my favorite current springers, the Lynx. And the version that Drac had a hole in the back where you could load a single round at a time and then use your Lynx just like normal. I also saw a Nexus Pro with the side completely cut out of it so you could hand feed a single one into the breech. It was really fun seeing kind of the innovation and clever workarounds to the no magazine rule. We played a variety of standard game types, my favorite probably being the Seize the Balls game. I also really enjoyed sort of Control Points game. I think they had a slightly different name for it, but it was a lot of fun. When you're playing with these rainbow pumps, it's quite a bit different than playing with a normal blaster. The one I was using had about a 9-shot capacity, and it's prime fire, but each time you've got to rock the blaster down to load the RSCB. It really changes your gameplay because it's not fire, re-aim, fire, fire, fire. You really are taking a new shot every single time you pull up that blaster. In the beginning of the game, I actually thought that they were pranking me because my blaster kept exploding in my hands. Just everything would come off. And then Aiden was kind enough to come along later and use some old school techniques of just carving little slits in the side of the PVC to make the PVC parts fit nice and tight. After that upgrade, I pretty much only had problems with a worn out catch. Even though these blasters are old school, they definitely still have issues here and there. Now, part of that might be that a lot of these blasters were sort of reconditioned just for the game. Others might be just prone to this from the beginning. A good example was one of the blasters I used, a rainbow pump, the sear, or rather it's essentially a nail or a screw. Over time, those wear down and eventually it doesn't catch very well. So I would find myself in the middle of combat, pulling up, priming the blaster, and it would fire at the ground because it didn't catch right away. Ultimately, it was still a lot of fun, and I had plenty of good tags and got tagged out plenty more, but it was a really enjoyable way to play the game. These old school blasters, since you can only fire one dart at a time, it really slows down the gameplay and you have to think really strategically. Additionally, reloading these inline hoppers, there's a ball valve and you've got to drop one dart in at a time to reload. And while you're doing this, you can't fire because that chamber needs to be pressurized in order for the blaster to function. This really meant that you had to make these reloads really strategic and make sure that someone else on your team was actually covering you and taking care of you while you were playing. In the end, I had an absolute blast playing out at the SENC. It's one of the oldest Nerf clubs, if not the oldest Nerf club. I actually don't know the history there, but they have a very good turnout, really wonderful group. I felt really welcomed, and I hope to get out and play with them again soon. Normally I attend all of the large games that I can get to each year. I'm really bummed I won't be able to make EndWar, but I know you will all have a blast out there without me. I will leave the link for EndWar down in the description, but I would also love to hear from you. What other games am I not aware of? What other games should I get to, especially in the US here? International travel is a little bit questionable at the moment, but I would love to make the effort to get out to more games in general across the country. So if you've got a game that you're interested in having me out to, or you think I would be interested in visiting for, put it down in the comments and we'll make sure to read those and see what else I can get out to in 2022. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Drac, and your whole team for having me out. It was really a pleasure, just world-class nerfing out there. Until next time, I'm out of darts.